Everybody, good morning and welcome to Forever Red Devils. It is Friday morning. The weekend is almost here, and with it comes the return of Manchester United. And with it are your latest Manchester United news and headlines. Lots to discuss ahead of Erik ten Hag's press conference coming up a little bit later, where he will give us some injury updates on what's happening with the squad and who is likely to be fit and play tomorrow, as well as give an indication of sort of what's going on, where he's at. I'm sure he'll be asked about whether there were discussions between him and the owners, for example, and be very interested to see what some of the questions are from the journalists during that press conference and how Erik ten Hag himself does respond, because we all know he's under pressure. And whilst maybe, that appointment of Thomas Tuchel to England maybe relieved a little bit of in terms of the number one option having been taken, he remains under a lot of pressure, and he's coming up against a potential replacement in Thomas Frank. So he needs to show up tomorrow, and the team needs to show up and put in a performance, because if United get outplayed by Brentford, INEOS is going to be sitting there watching the other side going, well, maybe this is the type of manager we need to invest in, because this is the type of football we want to play. And, we want to have a team which goes to a Etihad, an Emirates, a Anfield, and our players are the team. And if Brentford can come do that to United, then things like, well, what's the reason for that? And if Thomas Frank is the reason for that, well, then things start to go a bit down slope for Erik ten Hag. So a massive weekend in the season, because we haven't won a game now in about 4 or 5 games, and we've got to get back to winning ways. We've got to find 3 points. And it's not even just about the 3 points. We've also got to find a solid performance. We need to go and keep a clean sheet. We need to go and score some goals. We need Rashford scoring goals. I need Højlund scoring goals. I need to see Onana putting out some good saves. We need to see a solid back four with a good defensive midfielder performance. We need to start seeing things clicking into place. We need to start seeing signs that things are getting better, and that there is reason to hope. Because at the moment, there's not a lot of reason to hope, and you'll be forgiven for not backing the club at the moment and not backing Erik ten Hag. And so it's a lot to look at this weekend, and hopefully we're going to be always smiling come Sunday morning, or even Saturday evening, because you'll kick off tomorrow at about 3:30. I think it is 3:30 kick-off. It is at Old Trafford, so home game in front of the fans. Go and make a statement. Get everybody back on board. That's what Erik ten Hag needs to do. He's got to get back on board, and he's got to pick a team which can get the result, but a team that also demonstrates what it means to United. And what I mean by that is you need to pick a team that's going to go out and dominate Brentford. I understand that defensively we've been a little bit poor, but this is now not the time to go into your shell. You've got to try and find a way of getting a good result. And I personally think that, look, I mean, to be fair, it's also kind of a situation where maybe you just go bugger it, 3 at the back, solid, don't concede a goal, score a goal, and maybe you have to go conservative for the next few games to get some results. It's an interesting decision, because if they were to do that, and Erik ten Hag basically says this is like a temporary thing, we just need to find results, I think the fans to a certain degree would get over, would kind of understand it. But unfortunately, as well as United, we've always done things a certain way. We've always played a certain type of football, had a certain attitude in terms of going out and winning games, being aggressive. And when things aren't going well, and you're not doing that, then things get really heated. If things are going well and you're doing that, and you play more defensively, for example, then things, people can get behind. People were behind Mourinho when things are going well, but unfortunately, because he played such a horrible brand of football and was so negative, that as soon as things went badly, people were very quick to turn. So, but yeah, coming up with the show, we're going to be talking a little bit about Thomas Frank, talking about Erik ten Hag. We're going to be talking about Rasmus Højlund and his sort of return to full fitness. We're going to be talking about Lenny Yoro, who has put a date down in terms of the game he wants to be available, and kind of giving a bit of an indication of where he has where he is with his recovery, and when he might be able to start seeing the man. And we'll also be talking about Golden Boy nominations. 3 Manchester United players in that top 20 Golden Boy list. We always tend to have these players, but unfortunately, when was the last time we had a player that then lived up to his potential? Martial was a Golden Boy winner, and we've had lots of players who've been in these lists, but we haven't yet been able to make them sort of really count and really sort of stepped up and become truly world class. And in the main sport today, we're going to be talking about David Beckham. He has thrown his weight behind Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS, and says that he believes that they are the ones to get United back on track. So plenty to discuss. If you are watching this and you are new, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Let's get into it, shall we? We'll start with the Thomas Frank interview that he gave. So Thomas Frank was asked about the Erik ten Hag situation and been speculation that he's been potentially lined up as a replacement. And he said as follows. He said, it's incredible how much scrutiny he's had to face. He says, as a head coach, I acknowledge how it feels to be in a situation like this. I think it is too much. He's clearly a good coach. He's won 2 trophies in 2 seasons, but I understand how it is. If the team wins, the head coach is absolutely fantastic. If the team loses, the head coach is absolutely shit. Whereas it's probably somewhere in between. It's never only the head coach or the players or the fans or the boards. It's a combination of these things. So coming out in support of Erik ten Hag, but was also then asked about his potential speculation with Manchester United. He then said he's very happy at Brentford. However, he never knows what's going to happen in the future. So he's left the door open, and he's thrown a bit of support behind Erik ten Hag, but we all know that things push to shove, he would take the United job tomorrow. Excuse me. And why not? Why not? He's 51 years old, I think, so he's getting on in years, not getting any younger. And if he wants to become an elite manager, he needs to start taking on elite roles. And there is no bigger elite role right now than to manage Manchester United. And he's had an interesting career. He's been at Brentford now for 6 years, has Thomas Frank. So when he took over at Brentford, he was a relatively young manager. He would have been about 45. Before that, he was managing over in Denmark. So he's been in England for 6 years now. But he's basically his managerial career was very sort of internationally based. He was within the Denmark system for years and sort of worked his way up. And then he went to Brøndby, which is a club in Copenhagen, and then made the move to Brentford. Now, he's been great at Brentford. He was assistant coach initially, and then moved on to becoming the head coach in 2018, and led them to the Premier League. And he's now doing really, really well, and they've had a really good start to the season again, looking really good and looks like a complete side. So yeah, there's a reason that he is so highly rated, and very excited to sort of see how Brentford do this season in terms of if he's one on the radar, you got to monitor him. Other managers who have a link to us include Allegri, for example. We've always continued to be talked about Gareth Southgate. I'll be very surprised if we go the Southgate route. Graham Potter, Eddie Howe, those are sort of the main options. So but yeah, so that's what he's had to say. So he's come out in defense. Ironically, they're actually currently sitting above United on the table. I think they're in 11th, 2 points clear. So if United were to beat Brentford, then at least we go a point clear of them. But if Brentford were to beat United, they go 5 points clear. And how's that for a bit of a statement if you are eyeing up this potential job as an option, which Thomas Frank most certainly must be. So yeah, big interest sort of story over there. Right, let's talk a little bit about Rasmus Højlund, shall we? Because he's had a good endorsement from his national coach. And this is what he had to say. So Rasmus Højlund missed obviously the first international break, but he was back now this past week. He managed to play 57 minutes against Switzerland, and his manager, Lars Knudsen, has said that he's looking really, really good. And he said as following. He says, Rasmus must have the opportunity to really play his way back into his highest gear, and he's well on his way. He said, Rasmus is a fantastic player, and he delivers a fine effort. He has a really high level. You have to remember he's only just come back, saying this was only his third start of the season, and he has basically missed an entire pre-season, which is probably also important note to United fans to remember that he hasn't had that pre-season. But looking really good and getting a lot better. Now, if United are going to start scoring goals, we need Rasmus Højlund to go on a bit of a run of full fitness, get minutes under his belt, get opportunities. I think he has got the potential to be the big goal scorer in the club, but he needs to play as much as possible because he is still young and adapting. And the more he plays, the more he adapts. The more he adapts, the more he'll score. So it's one of those things. He's got to get as much minutes as possible, and maybe one of the few times where an international break's a good thing. And this is what was quite interesting when it comes to international breaks, because generally people hate international breaks. It's lack of club football, and it's boring. Nobody really has the same sort of affiliation. I think a lot of that's because obviously the Premier League being so internationally supported that a lot of these people who support the teams of the Premier League aren't involved necessarily where support players who aren't involved for their national side. So you look at supporters in Asia, for example, who love United. There's no United Asian players at the moment. And similarly, for example, the American stuff like that, which is probably why the international break is not really loved by that much. Obviously, if you're in England, you then go support England, life's good, etc., etc. Except people only really seem to enjoy international football when it comes to big tournaments, your Euros, your World Cups, your Copa Americas, for example, AFCON, the likes of those. Even UEFA Nations League not taken particularly seriously, but whilst genuinely people don't like international breaks because that's where so many injuries happen with players. This, I think, has been a good situation where it's been a really good thing that we've had an international break because Rasmus Højlund, who's coming back from injury, trying to work up that fitness, has managed to go and get genuinely some minutes into his legs, and that'll help in building his fitness ahead of this weekend, where I think he could very well start. I think he should start, to be honest. I think if we want to go and win, we need to get him up firing and we need to get him scoring goals. So, yeah, I'll be very interested to see. Lots of people talking about maybe even starting him and Xerxes, putting Xerxes down the right, Højlund through the middle, Rashford down the left, for example, or Garnacho down the left, and be interested to see what Ten Hag goes with regards to his potential side for this weekend. But the good news on that front, from a fitness point of view, the fact that Rasmus Højlund is looking good, and that despite missing that first game, he looks fit to go, ready to go, and will hopefully be involved in that first first game back this weekend, as opposed to the likes of Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, Kobe Mainoo, all out for a while, and we're still waiting to find some fitness updates from somebody else. But speaking of fitness updates, Lenny Yoro has apparently spoken to his friends about his potential return and has said that he is targeting the Arsenal game in December to be involved in. Now, I don't think that means he's targeting that game to return to the team and then play for the first time, but I think he wants to be involved in that game, which means hopefully he's going to be fit before then. And if he's going to be fit before then, it is early December, so you kind of feel that he probably have to start notching up minutes from at least sort of mid-November. So hopefully we're looking at sort of maybe 3 to 4 weeks, and we will have Lenny Yoro back and playing for United, standard, makes a signing, everybody gets very excited about it, and then bang, out for however many months. But it does sound a bit more positive. It sounds like he is sort of coming towards the sort of the final straight of his injury. Hopefully he'll be back within the next few weeks playing, and hopefully we can get him fit and firing and getting minutes under his belt as soon as possible. Because this is a player who is supposed to be the future. This is our future centre-back star. I mean, I think, if we look at the team, it's De Ligt, Martinez, Lenny Yoro, who are the future of our defence. I think, both Martinez and De Ligt, even potential future captains of United, De Ligt definitely will be a potential option for captaincy moving forward. So, yeah, we've got to get these guys playing and playing together as much as possible so that, we, first of all, can establish our top two centre-backs who generally play week in, week out. It's kind of how centre-backs work. But they do still need to have chemistry between the three or four, so that when there are injuries, players can come in and feel comfortable, and until they're all playing regularly with each other and we can identify what works. And it's not just much, combinations, what works with who's playing on the left, who's playing on the right. When Lisandro Martinez plays left footed, he plays on the left generally, but Harry Maguire's played both left and right centre-back before. De Ligt, is he going to become more comfortable on the left or the right when he's playing with Lenny Yoro or Maguire? So it's those sort of combinations as well. How does he play with Mazraoui to the right of him if he's playing on the right centre-back? How does he play with Dalot on the right of him? How does he link with the midfield? So those are the sort of combinations, far more complicated than just who his centre-back partner is next to him. It is definitely a case of trying to make sure that he understands the team, for example. How does he work with Onana, for example? Those sort of combinations as well. And you only get to know your players, and you only get to know these combinations when you're playing football. And at the moment, he can study and he can, be in the change room and he can laugh and get to know people as much as he can. But until he's out there under pressure, playing at the highest level in key games, he's not going to be able to build those relationships. He's not going to be able to adapt to a league, which we've seen people take a while to adapt for. I mean, even Saliba, for example, he's playing brilliant football at Arsenal. Went away on loan, had to really sort of learn his stripes, and then came back, and then he was kind of ready. So especially a centre back and somebody as young as he is, he's going to need time to adapt, and he needs to be allowed that time to adapt as well. It's you can't. And I like the fact that most of our centre backs, we've got a De Ligt who's pretty established. We've got Martinez, we've got Maguire. So you've got three pretty established centre backs. You've got the experienced Johnny Evans, who is getting older these days, but he's a Premier League winner. There's Johnny Evans, and he's going to bring that experience with him of playing for United during the glory years, and he's got the experience of then going and having a different challenge. But I mean, as much as some people didn't necessarily like Johnny Evans back at the time, he's won a lot of things. I mean, he was part of the Champions League winning squad. I think he's got a Champions League medal, actually, or Champions League thing. So he's won like 3 Premier Leagues, won the FA Cup, he's won a Champions League, he's won everything. I think he's actually won 3 FA Cups. I'm pretty sure he's won. I think he won the one with Leicester as well. So he is a lot of experience, and I think he's been a very shrewd signing actually as Johnny Evans. Maybe it's not the most inspiring signing, but it's amazing how well it's worked on. He sort of came in just, we had injuries, and he sort of came in just training with United. Then they said, listen, he's still looking pretty good. And he's actually done a job. We got him man of the match the other day as well. So it's incredible how, you can go and sign all these amazing players, and then you go and bring in a Johnny Evans on a free, basically, and just say, just come help out, will you? Oh, you're actually not looking too bad. You want to just stay on, basically. And all of a sudden, he's playing week in, week out. He did miss the penalty to lose the Charity Shield, but we're not going to hold that against him because, not too stressed about that. But let's talk about INEOS. Let's talk about David Beckham, who's talked about INEOS, for example. He was on the Rio Ferdinand Presents podcast and had the following to say. So basically, David Beckham has come out in support of him, saying that he's met him a few times and really likes him, and has said the following. He said that, I think, speaking as a United fan, I think many people said the club needed change and needed a fresh perspective on how this club needs to be run and the decisions that are made. I really like Jim. I've met him a few times over the years with a few mutual friends. I think that he's a fan, and obviously he's a great businessman as well, one of the best and one of the biggest. But I think more importantly, the fans see that he cares. I think that's a big part of it. I think the fans had lost faith with the leadership over the years, and obviously he really cares about, what he wants to do and what he wants to create. So hopefully things will change, but these things take time. I think we've been quite patient as United fans over the years, but we want those good old days back. We want those days back, and the sooner the better. So I think it's also a bit of a warning to Sir John Ratcliffe that we need success quickly. That whilst there is a big overhaul needed, you've got to find success quickly, because United fans have been starved for success for far too long. And that's not to say that we're not going to give INEOS, for example, we don't have a choice. But, fans will give them a chance as long as they can see a plan in action. And they can see that things are happening, which is positive. And we're making positive news. And that's the main thing from INEOS. That's what INEOS has to get right, is that they have to make sure that the changes that they're bringing and they're being proactive are changes that are good for the club, and changes people can get behind. And speaking of fans, interestingly enough, there was actually a meeting which happened this week with a fan group called the 1958, which are one of the main groups that organized protests against the Glazers. They were anonymous for many years, and apparently they actually had a meeting this week. So they're one of the bigger fan groups which helped organize those protests against Glazers. And since the INEOS taken over, they've talked about the fact that they want to engage with fans more. And apparently the 1958 have actually created a fan coalition called FC58. And basically that's a supporter representation arm of the 1958. And this is going to meet with the club and engage with the club from the fans. So the representative from the 1958 said as follows. He said, the meeting with the club went very well, where we spoke about our intentions to move into fan representation with FC58, the fan representation division of the 1958. We remain fiercely independent with no agenda or self-driven ambitions. This will become crystal clear following the release of our launch. It is a much needed new dawn for fan representation. They have had regular meetings with the Manchester United Supporters Trust, and they've been having lots of different dialogue. And there's actually somebody who's actually now in charge of fan engagement. And that's important, I think. And it sounds very PR-y, and it is PR-y to a certain degree. It's about making sure the fans are on board, but it's also about communication and just saying, listen, this is the reality where the club is. This is what we're doing, and it's more than just from a team perspective, because if you're a diehard fan, it's not just about the men's first team. What's the women's program doing? How's the youth doing? How's the academy doing? What's the plans for Old Trafford? What's the plans for ticket prices? How accessible is this club? What is this? What's happening with merchandising? What's happening with international engagement? It's about the club as a whole. Holistically, you've got to understand this club needs to function on a high level, not just from the best 11 players on the pitch, but how do fans engage with it? How is it accessible to fans? Is it representative of the fans? Is there a link? Is there a genuine sense of togetherness with the players and the fans, for example? How do you build that culture again where the team is united with the fans and fans can get behind them and they feel they're part of the club? Because I think for many years it's obviously been a fight between the fans and the club, and the fans sometimes going after players, sometimes going after management, but mostly going after the owners, saying they've taken our club away and how do we get our club back? Now INEOS's responsibility now is to give the club back in terms of making it accessible and making the club that people can get behind, can feel a part of, and can be proud of. Those are the things that they've got to get right. And I do think that having these conversations, and it was the CEO, Colin Roche, as well as the Director of Fan Engagement, Rick McGann, who had discussion with the members of the 9558. And apparently the Chief Executive, Omar Bereda, was the one who actually set the meeting and basically pushed for the meeting. And I think it's a big thing is to try and prevent further protests. It's about getting these fan groups from the side, because whilst the fan groups will be now feel very empowered and very much be like, well, you've just shown us that if you mess with us, that you care enough about us, that we've got power to then go and organize this protest. But I think the main thing is that the protests are happening because they don't like what they see. Now, if they understand what's happening behind the scenes, then maybe they're less inclined to protest. Maybe there's less reason to protest. But similarly, for example, if you then get a clear picture and you understand how things are working and you still don't like what's happening, then you can organize protests and you can be a genuine voice of the people and be able to explain what's happening with some authority. You actually know what's happening. You're not just assuming, and you're not just, throwing out accusations. You're actually well informed, and you're still forming opinions about how the club is being mismanaged or not making the right decisions and the likes of that. So I think fan engagement like this can only be a good thing. But we'll wait and see exactly how it all might pan out over the years. But it's good to see that they are engaging with them. In terms of the content for the rest of the day, with press conference at 2:30, we will have a live reaction for that. We'll then also have our preview coming out tonight. Tomorrow we'll have a predicted team coming up in the form of a short, and then we'll have a match reaction after the game as well. So as I mentioned, if you are new, smash the like on the videos, subscribe to the channel as well. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Get any requests for some content, stuff like that, and yeah.